are more for your knowledge base because the state has mandated it. And so cybersecurity is our new initiative in the state of Virginia. And so all areas of career and technical education have to have cybersecurity training at their summer conference. One of the things I think you need to look on the back of that chart that has the endorsements where it says cybersecurity fundamentals, 8620 is there for health and medical sciences. You could be asked to teach the fundamentals course at your school because you teach ethics, and that's basically, a lot of it is that. It is the information regarding cybersecurity across the board, and then health informatics, which is electronic health record and medical record, and securing things that we work with in health and medical sciences is important. And while you're thinking he's up here talking about robotics and electronics, you have to remember every piece of equipment we use in the hospital runs across a modem. We have more risk areas than most for this. So, I'm just asking you, he's going to get to eventually your content on health and medical sciences, but you need to go, you're going to have to revamp some of your syllabus to include this new information when you teach your students regarding cybersecurity and healthcare, especially practical nursing, who's using pumps and all those things that are programmed in the hospital. You have to understand the importance of cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. She's right. This was the easiest one to prepare for because there's so much content to talk about. But in order to get to the conversation on health and medical, I wanted to make you aware of some of the other stuff that either teachers in your school or area are presenting their students, because it's important to know what your students are coming to you with. So if they've had a course like cyber literacy or cyber literacy 2, they're coming to you with a great foundational knowledge of these ethics conversations in terms of robotics, privacy versus security, all that other stuff we've talked about. But these articles, if you read all the way through, you'll notice there's some references to health and medical in here also. And it's everywhere. The challenges that you guys have to deal with in terms of cybersecurity are everywhere. Everyone's taking lessons from what health and medical are doing with these devices. So these are good articles. They do a great job of explaining what the kind of national view of cybersecurity is and where we were leading us to this point today. So I want to start with the GOP article first. Good conversation with our students is, what does GOP even stand for? We know it's the nickname of the Republicans, but it's the grand old party. And they've assumed that nickname. So the GOP is a conversation about Republicans. In this case, GOP senators assail the White House for pushing executive order on cybersecurity. So we know that this is a relevant conversation to anything that deals with cybersecurity, but there's more than just the conversation going on here. There's some great vocabulary. Assail. There's some great research going on here. When they talk about the senators and their locations, we can talk about the geography of this position. Where do these senators come from? When we talk about networks, we talk about geography all the time. We have an activity where we can track our data as it flows through the internet, and we can identify locations that our data is traveling through. And it happens just that fast because we're traveling near the speed of light. But in this case, the geography is a little more relevant because I see Senator McCain from Arizona. I don't know if you heard the news last night, but he's been diagnosed with brain cancer, so Godspeed to John McCain. Texas and Georgia are also mentioned here as well. But what I want to bring your attention to is the date. The date of this article is September 14th, 2012. So this is a couple years ago, just before his re-election. This was his first term, Obama's first term, and he's pushing an executive order on cybersecurity. First question that will come up with students is, what is an executive order and why is it used? And you'll learn a little bit about that here in these two articles. There's going to be more questions about that, so we won't answer that together as a group just yet, but the bulk of this is about what the executive order is and what it's protecting. I have a couple starred paragraphs, but we'll get to that in just a second. So we'll get to the content. Let me move on to the second article. White House expected to issue executive order on cybersecurity. This is February 2013. So it's February, he still hasn't issued the executive order. He's been elected, he's been inaugurated, and he still hasn't issued the executive order. That's what the dates mean to me when you read these two articles. So whereas now we've got 30-something in the first 6 or 7 months, here's one that was threatened in September. He was elected, he was inaugurated, and he's still threatening in February to push this executive order through. So it's kind of an interesting analogy of events. So again, I'll call out my important paragraphs in just a second. So why is the White House considering using an executive order regarding cybersecurity legislation? Your students will be able to answer this question after they read through the articles. Anybody have a thought as to why the White House is looking to issue this executive order on cybersecurity? And don't think too deeply. This is a very superficial question. There's one reason why he's using an executive order. For speed, because he can't get Congress to agree to his specifics. That's it. All right, so we can talk about cybersecurity, but we can also talk about some civics and some government. And it's explained here. It goes through the reasons why. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph on the GOP article. Unilateral action in the form of government mandates on the private sector creates an adversarial relationship instead of a cooperative one. And that's a true story, right? When I sign an executive order and I push this law through without Congress's support, it's going to create an adversarial relationship between the president and Congress, as well as the president and the businesses he's trying to support. Because if they weren't in favor of this, if they're working with their congressman, then they're not going to agree with this executive order either. What's the goal of the White House, and why does the GOP stand firm against it? Another thing we can do with these two articles is talk about bias. One is definitely written from the perspective of the Republicans, and one is definitely written from the perspective of the Democrats. And we can talk a little bit about what it means to be biased in your reporting. Is this fake news? Is this the untrue media? No. They're reporting a side, and they don't hide the fact that they're reporting on a side. This is definitely good reporting. But I think what you'll take away from this question here is the White House is expecting this to be a voluntary program. He says it in the 2nd paragraph of the White House article. He's expected to set out a voluntary program to encourage firms, utility operators, telecom companies, and others to adopt certain cybersecurity practices. And the Republicans don't want it to be voluntary? They don't. They say throughout the article that this information sharing should not be voluntary, that everyone should be able to participate. The problem there is when you require someone to do it, that's when you generally get the pushback. And that's what the Democrats understand here. What the country cannot afford, this is the Republican article, second to last paragraph, what the country cannot afford to build is bureaucratic walls around information once it is shared with the federal government. So 9/11 brought about a whole new world of information sharing. One of the main flaws, they state, of 9/11 was this lack of information sharing. We had all the information we needed. It was just compartmentalized in the various agencies. The problem was we needed to share it. That's good and bad. Privacy versus security. What's the problem with sharing information? The more people that see it, the more dangers you have of it getting out. Same with hospital records. Like you said, everything travels through a modem. As soon as it leaves control of my 4 walls, that information's out there, susceptible to spoofing or sniffing or some form of malicious intent. So the 9/11 Commission said, yes, we're all going to share data. We have to share data. It's the only way to combat against these things. The question is, do we make it voluntary or do we make it a required participation? And that's 10 years later, 11 years later, they're still having that debate. Is this voluntary or is this not voluntary? But the Republicans see it here. We cannot build bureaucratic walls around the information once it's shared. We still need to share information after it's been shared and processed, because the NSA might have a different set of tools to process it than the CIA or the FBI or any other number of 3-letter agencies who are dealing with this information. Our students, I mean, we have to understand this too. Our students are now, our seniors are born in 2000. Our juniors are born in 2001. These are quickly becoming post-9/11 babies. Right, forget about digital immigrants and digital natives. These kids are now born after 9/11. That's shocking. that they're not going to understand a world where you could walk up to the gate and wish grandma goodbye before she got on the plane, that you have to do it from outside TSA now. I don't remember those days, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday either. So, this is a world that they've grown up in. Information sharing, data at my fingertips, entertainment at my fingertips. But they have to understand the implications of this as well, especially if they're getting into your field. Because they're going to be taking care of us, and I want my record secure when they're taking care of us. What types of problems could this pose for affected businesses? Obviously, as soon as I make it a requirement, they have to make their data fit that specific mold, and that requires upheaval. If you come from the industry where you've gone through technological changes, whether it be in the classroom or in the hospital or in the practice, whenever a platform changes, new training has to happen. Downtime has to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. And that's a cost of doing business in that sector. And that's obviously what businesses are going to be the main source of blowback on this kind of executive order. And it happens every time there is an executive order. Because the businesses talk to the congressman, they don't talk to the president. So when he issues this executive order, it's his goal that he's pushing, not necessarily Congress or the businesses. What problems could the Democrats and Obama face if an executive order is made? And this is, again, a superficial question, nothing that requires any deep thought. What's the problem that he's going to face? We're seeing it now. They're not going to have any support. If he pushes this through, he's not going to have any support of Congress. President Trump has pushed through dozens of executive orders, and he's got no support in Congress anymore. So it's great to say you're getting things done, but how are you doing it? And again, this goes a little bit beyond the cybersecurity discussion, but it's an important conversation for your students to have. Does the president have a right to make decisions that affect businesses? You better believe he does. Right? That's his one job, is to look out for us, whether it be us, the individual, or us, the businesses. And these decisions most definitely affect the way a company operates. It's his job to act in our best interest and make sound judgments and sound decisions. We only hope that that's what's happening when this kind of an order comes down. There's a couple more questions. I like the next to last one and the last one. What do you think about government sharing private information between agencies? Students will have an opinion on this too. Right? A good thing or a bad thing? Privacy versus security. You can't have both. And CyberLit 2 students understand that you can't have both. You can't have privacy and security. It's one or the other. We talked about it in agriculture. There's a third piece to that equation. It was privacy, security, and it was like facility or something like ease of progress. You can't have all three. It's one or the other. So students understand the value of privacy, but I think our students are starting to respect the feeling of security more. They don't mind waiting at the airport to go through TSA, whereas the rest of us, it's a nightmare. Although flying out of Norfolk is a breeze, but I made a connection in Charlotte, and I had to leave the airport and come back in, and that was crazy. So facial recognition came up. That's a great debate. We have that debate in CyberLit 1. Should facial recognition be used in major sporting events? We've been using it since the 80s. There was a Super Bowl in Miami where we first debuted facial recognition. Anybody know? Are we still using it today? Oh, we're still using it.
It was on the news this morning. Walmart's researching it to evaluate the customer response to the checkout.
Okay. So they're gonna check their mood through facial recognition. Yeah.
And we had about one of our kids got took at this place. They were lost on the mall. And so one of the teachers told me, he said, don't worry about it, come with me. And so we went in the Smithsonian, in the American History Museum, and we went under the ground floor. So the ground floor, they have a room that looks like an IMAX theater. And they told us this is described for students. And so we started to tell them what they have on. We told them in the pictures, the wall was split up. Oh my God. The whole room was the mall. You can see everything going on outside the car. And it's the one that was standing right in front of the other side of the wall, Veterans Monument, and we were walking along with that.
Yeah.
So I never
Sure. There's a lot of cities overseas that have a lot more cameras than we have. The problem with facial recognition in the airport to track suspicious individuals is the ability to render false positives. It happens all the time, and that's why you don't see more facial recognition. They're using it to surveil and to observe, but generally not to issue warrants from, because it's hard to be 100% sure when facial features change on a daily basis, including hairstyles, sunglasses, no sunglasses, tan versus no tan. So it's not reliable enough yet, but once it is, you'll see more of it. But there's a lot of truth in the fiction that we read, in the books that we read, in any of those, government thrillers. There's a lot of truth behind some of the scenarios that they're portraying there, including being able to identify backpacks as they walk the National Mall. The technology's there, just so long as we use it for the right reasons. Are we sharing too much information? Is privacy at risk? How many have Google accounts, Gmail? You know everything you send, right? It's all tracked. Our students are confident in the fact that Snapchat's only temporary. It's only temporary. They don't understand that the picture is stored on a server because it's viewable by me for 24 hours. That means it's stored somewhere. Do you think it really erases from their servers after 24 hours, or the clock expires? The clock expires. Right? They're still storing that data. I have a friend in Baltimore who's a lawyer. We went to college together. And his main job is what he calls e-discovery. He handles thousands upon thousands of documents and bytes of data on a daily basis. And I said, what's one message that you would want to say to my students? He said, if you typed it, if you sent it digitally, I can find it. And this is what he does for a living. He helps clients win millions of dollars by discovering documents. One document sometimes is all it takes. He took me past a construction site and said, you see they pull that rebar underneath the parking garage floor to strengthen the facility. One of our clients' parking structures failed. I had to find an email where they talked about the plan, where the specifics the details weren't specific enough to say the rebar had to be this far below the surface, it had to be this far from the bottom. We found that email, they wanted to sue. So he says, if they write it, I can find it. Whether it's on a school intranet or it's on the World Wide Web. So privacy may be at risk, but the flip side of that is security is not. Although, we feel that sometimes it is. There hasn't been a major event here, international, since 9/11. We've had plenty of domestic events, but I think we've done a pretty good job at stopping the international ones. And you don't know that it's working until it doesn't. And that's the problem with cybersecurity. You have to have faith that we're doing our jobs until the day it doesn't. And then we play Monday morning quarterback. Interestingly enough, do you know that a virus scanner is malware? You know what malware is, right? It's things that are put on your computer to do harm or to cause things to happen without your knowledge. A virus scanner is malware. Students' eyes open wide when they realize that they're allowing malware on their computer by installing a virus scanner. Because what is it doing? It's intercepting messages that are sent to your computer, quarantining them, without you even knowing, without you saying okay. So it's a form of malware. And when students understand this, they have a new appreciation for what it means to be secure in their environment and to relinquish a little bit of privacy. And that's okay. I use Google because I don't care too much about my privacy with those emails. My Cyber Innovation Center network is a little more secure, so I can sleep all night. But understand, privacy versus security, you don't get both, you get one or the other. We're going to take a look at cyber literacy lesson number 3, Presidential Cyber Platform Part 2, in just a second. What I want to give you first is a break. I know you guys some of you are checking out today, and you may have to bring stuff to your cars, you may have to go see the front desk. So we want to give you about 10, 15 minutes to take care of whatever you need to take care of, so we can come back and finish this last hour and a half. And I can be done by 11, you guys can be done with your closing ceremonies and whatnot afterwards. So it is 25 after 9. I want to be back by 9:40. 9:40, 9:45 we kick off.
Hey guys, I have some bad news, so everybody just go, oh. I know, I hate delivering bad news. The Lulu Row lady is not going to be able to come. Her child is sick. So my 10 winners, congratulations. It was all virtual. I am so sorry. She's just not able to come, so I apologize for that. But we are still selling 50/50 tickets. So if anybody would like that, we're up to close to $400 in the pot. So you would get half of that, and the other half would go to the Virginia Hostess Scholarship. Okay? So come see Mitchie and I. Yes, it's in your program. The Lulu Row lady is in the...
Yeah, so do we get a gallon or a $25 winner?
Unfortunately not, because she didn't pay the vendor fee. She was giving the certificates out, and since she's not here to redeem them, yeah.
And before you leave, we have 5 more prizes from Virginia Active. So if you get your tickets out. The first 3 are $10 Amazon cards. And the number is 2021818. Anybody have 2021818?
Raise their hand. I think hey, there we go.
Last 3 numbers, 824. Last 3 numbers, 815. Last 3 numbers, 797.
Feedback on, oh, that's me. That's me. 797.
And 2 more prizes. Last 3 numbers, 814. That's me. 1 more prize. $808.
Thank you. Time, are we doing NICERC door prizes as soon as 10 minutes is up, right?
10 minutes from now.
10 minutes.
What's our silent options up to? I know, I'm like, well,
They were saying we're going to just the 2 of them today. She wants a
it's really nice. Whose camera is this? On a tripod. That's awfully nice. That is nice. It's a Christmas party in a basket. That's what I like.
Brandon, which one do you want? I want to bid on it. So I can jack your price up.
I want this one right here.
Uh-oh, hey.
I want this one right here.
Get away from my bowl.
I'm already up the price.
All right, Randall. Look at Wow.
I'm taking this to my daughter today. That is cute. I might have to bid on it. Stop it. Competition. Competition. Oh, look at these other ones. How are we doing up here? This is kind of cute. If I lived in Virginia Beach, I should. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, if they bought us. I was just going to say it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.